just wanted to talk a little bit about my background and my journey. This my struggle to actually get to ask for sponsorship. So I grew up in an immigrant family who came to the UK for a better life. It meant that they left behind all their extended family support and left them, and latterly me, extremely isolated and vulnerable, lacking critical, emotional, practical, and financial support. I was the fifth of six children to my parents combined. My father was loving, kind, and available. My mother provided physical care and loves us to the best of her ability. But I believe her mental health was and remains significantly challenged because she had, I believe, a narcissistic personality disorder. From the outside, we look like the perfect family: two working parents, clean, organised home, regular meal times, good provision of clothes and equipment. We were encouraged to attend school, and we had excellent support to achieve our academic aspiration. We were also encouraged to attend a church regularly and extracurricular activities. Inside our home was dominated by my mother's anger, rage, and unpredictable moods, which left everyone around her in a perpetual state of unhappiness, sadness, anxiety, anger, rage, and paralysis, wanting and needing to remain close to mum, but at the same time terrified and wanting to flee. It was a nightmare. In addition, I believe both my parents struggled without any sort of family support to raise their children in a sometimes hostile foreign environment where there were issues of both race and class. My mother, in particular, had no capacity to process her fears internally or to help me cope with with these issues. So these fears were kind of openly and dramatically shared, creating an overwhelmingly fearful environment for me growing up. I now believe I was a quiet, sensitive child, labelled the good one, helpful, happy one. These labels conceal the fact that I found my home an extremely distressing and traumatic place. I soaked up the sadness, pain, and fear in the environment. I was constantly on edge, scared, terrified of what bad thing was going to happen next to me or to anyone else who dared to challenge my mum or get in her path. I realise now, secretly angry and raging on the inside against my mum on the one hand, and desperate to heal her pain and sadness on the other, because I'm one of the closest people to her. It was my mission to fix her, and that would in turn make me and my family happy and normal. I wanted desperately for my mum to see me and offer consistent love, validation, and emotional support. This, I believe, is where my codependence began. I believe I coped by dissociating, leaving my body, and this left me with a constant sense of being remote, absent, and disconnected. I struggle to have a consistent memory or history of my own sort of childhood. I developed into a teenager with a very poor sense of self and low self-esteem. I barely existed. I was about pleasing and reacting to others. A very poor sense of my own needs and wants. I increasingly indulged in romantic fantasy as a means of escaping. Love would give me the happy ending I desperately sought. I looked to romantic relationships to get validation and to be special. And caring for and fixing others would be my purpose. It was my destiny. In reality, I was mostly clueless about relationships. I found them draining, confusing, scary, and painful. I believe that my codependence set me on a path for difficult, toxic, and abusive relationships with friends partners, and colleagues, which further negatively impacted my self-esteem. I first came across the idea of codependency in 2012 after reading a book about the impact of having a narcissistic mother on daughters. I looked at the CoDA website and could identify with all but one of the patterns. I was too afraid and ashamed to get help. I was not used to getting support emotionally in a prolonged way. Anyway, was there anything to say, worth saying? I was increasingly consumed with anger and rage at unjust treatment from harmful others, secretly wanting to fix them, just like I'd wanted to do with my mum. And then really everything would be okay. My life would be happy. It was others that needed to change, not me. I attended my first CoDA meeting 4 years later in 2016, after ending my 20-year relationship with my co-parent. The relationship, I now realise, had replicated the extreme emotional conditions of my childhood home. I felt empty. I was in so much pain, anger, and confusion. Could anything help bring about lasting change? I'd read a lot of self-help books, theoretical books, as part of my role supporting others emotionally. I'd had brief episodes of therapy, which helped me survive, but still I was in pain and finding relationships increasingly hurtful, confusing, and distressing. I attended meetings regularly for 3 years and found them a huge relief. I could be me, honest. Confused, invisible, lost, empty, and in pain. I was in a safe place where I could lose the mask. No performance required here. I did not have to be the all-knowing professional. I could be me. Even if that was not known, it was a place to start. I didn't have to fix others, and they didn't try to fix me. I could just be. I was in so much pain, I struggled to do small talk, know what to say, and tended to leave quickly after the meetings. As time went on, I became confused when others talked about working their program. Secretly, I was jealous and resentful of those talking about having a sponsor. Yet I was too fearful to take the risk of finding my own. Would I really have anything meaningful to say? Was there anything worth discussing? How exposing and embarrassing and shameful to make that discovery with someone else. Would I be able to recover from the pain of a possible rejection? My fears were both monumental and profound. I attended a workshop given by the founders, Ken and Mary, in 2019, 3 years after being in CoDA. I experienced a profound sense of warmth, love, and safety of the wider CoDA fellowship. I cried for 2 days in a gentle way. My tears flowed as though they came from my eyes. I believe they came from my inner child who'd been locked away. I overcame my powerful defenses. I believe it was a gift from my higher power and one of the biggest steps I had to take. I reached out and was gifted a sponsor at that conference. And through this relationship, I have remained in recovery and continued to make progress. My sponsor. I talk with my sponsor twice weekly to work through the steps. We started in October 2019, and we're currently on step 9. I struggle to scale or what sponsorship has meant for me in my life and CoDA recovery. I am so deeply grateful for the support and validation I've received, which I believe has helped me to continue to recover one day at a time over the last 3 years. My sponsor has provided warm, supportive, consistent, trusting relationships for me to explore how my codependency developed in my childhood and adolescence and continues to impact on me today. My sponsor has helped me to move from step 2 to 3 by developing my own ideal concept of a loving higher power, a force outside myself that I can depend on, that operates for my highest good. I now have a strong and growing connection to my higher power through prayer, meditation, walks in nature, attending meetings, and having outreach calls. I'm still working on this. I know I need to learn to stay connected and not tune out when triggered, and to listen better for my higher power's guidance. None of this would have been achieved without the help of my sponsor. My sponsor helped me to overcome my fear of working step 4 and 5. I was so angry with others. I wanted them to change, for them to say sorry. The idea of looking at me was terrifying, stroke alien. And anyway, I was the good person, the saint, who had been wronged or harmed. Through her gentle support, she has helped me to understand that whilst I'm not responsible for the inappropriate or abusive behaviour of others, I am responsible for my own actions and setting boundaries to keep myself safe in relationships. My sponsors helped me to understand that the relationship which had been most harmed in my codependency is to my higher power and myself. It's these primary relationships I need to work on to improve and restore. In step 9, I can then consider others. My sponsor has been kind and patient as I grapple with sadness, loss, confusion, pain, anger, doubt, and humour sometimes, as I work through the challenging process combined with the day-to-day stress of being a mum, co-parent, and a professional. I know that I would not have come this far without the support of my sponsor. I am truly, truly, truly grateful. I realise now that I cannot do it alone. It is okay to be vulnerable and to ask for help. I don't have to be perfect, just to be willing, one day at a time, and that I am good enough. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much.